Sup! In this tutorial we're going to learn about fonts, loading custom fonts that we've downloaded onto our web page, also some of the different styles that we can use for fonts and text on our page. Oh, welcome back! This tutorial is going to be awesome. We're going to learn about some fonts, different font sizes, and it's going to be insane. So just strap in, get yourself a nice cold drink, cook up some bacon, and let's get to it. We're going to learn about fonts and font styles in this tutorial, so let's just jump right into the CSS. We already set up our classes in the last tutorial. We're going to go into our CSS file, and we're actually going to create some true sans serif fonts and some true serif fonts. So what serif means is it has those little tails on the end of the font, which we'll see, and sans means don't do that. So sans means no tails on the end of our font. So let's go into our serif class, and we're going to create a Times New Roman font type for the serif class, because generally Times New Roman is a serif type font. So we're going to define that by a font family. So what font family is going to do is it's going to say, hey, what kind of font do we want? And within quotations, we're going to say, hey, try to load up Times New Roman. And what's going to happen is if our browser can't load up, like a heroin addict, Times New Roman, what it wants to default to is something else. So we're going to give it a second option of trying to load up Times if it can't load up Times New Roman. And lastly, we're going to give it the family that it's in. So it's a serif font family. And there we go. We have something, and make sure we do our semicolon at the end there. And we have a serif type font within our serif class, which makes sense. Now let's go to sans serif and do something similar. We're just going to go font type, or font family, I'm sorry. And this time we're going to do Arial. And if we can't do Arial, revert back to Helvetica. And both of those are sans serif. So let's save that. Save that, check it out, make sure it works real quickly. We reload our page. And if you look real closely, like on these T's, you can kind of see how there's a little curve at the end of those T's, a little bit of style. That's what serif is. If there is no like little curves or anything like that, that's going to be sans serif text. So that's something nice to know. But let's say we want to load a custom font, for example, this H2 or H1 headers. We can do that as well by defining H1 and H2 and loading up a font within here. Now I've created a new fonts folder, and I downloaded a font from the internet called Typester, and it's an OTF file. So what we're going to do first, we're going to load up that file, and I'm just going to do it here for the convenience of having it all on the same screen. But usually you want to load these fonts up at the top of a CSS file. But how you load up a font is you define font face, and then within here we want to give this font a family name. So we're going to say font family, and it's just going to be like Typester. You can give this whatever name you'd like, but this is going to be a reference when we actually stylize our H1 and H2 tags. After we do that, we want to load up the source of where this font actually is, and you do that by giving it a URL, and then we specify the location of our font. Sometimes you will use a link attribute in the header of an HTML file and reference one of Google's fonts, and then you can refer to it there. This is if you actually load it up on your server. So we're going to say URL is /fonts/typoster.otf. And that should load up our font so we can actually use this font family. So let's try that within our H1 and H2 properties. So again, we're just going to define what the font family is. And we're just going to say Typoster. And hopefully that should load up that font that we just downloaded and put it into our fonts folder that we created and display that. So let's check that out. And you can see we have a custom font now on our page. So that's kind of how the fonts work. Let's say we actually want to adjust the size. Again, I'm sure you're familiar with this since pretty much everyone has used a notepad software. What we're going to do is change the font size of some of these attributes. Maybe, for example, this special text. So for special text, we're going to say font dash size, and generally you can do 16 pixels. But a lot of old browsers don't exactly know what pixels are. They're like, I don't know exactly what that is. So we're gonna say font size instead to be 1 EM. And 1 EM is equivalent to 16 pixels. Anytime you're trying to figure out, hey, I want 32 pixels, well, that's going to be 2 EM. And generally, you just have to use a calculator to find out, like 24 pixels, or you can just do it in your head. But that'd be like 1.666, I think, EMs if you wanted to do 24 pixels. But generally, this is the supported method of defining a font size by using something called EM. So that's something else that's kind of important in CSS. There's something called font weight, and this is going to be kind of like saying our font is bold. So the higher the weight, up to 1000, I believe, or 900, something like that, it's going to give it a different boldness. So we could just give this either a boldness of 100, which will be slightly bold, or we could do like 700, and that will give it a more bold appearance. We also can do different font styles. So font style could be either normal, which is what we have generally, italic, or there's also an oblique option as well, which is kind of italic, kind of contorts the text a little bit more. We're just going to go with this and save our project and reload our page, and we have this nice italic, a larger font, and it looks alright. So that's pretty much all we need to know for fonts as of right now. There's font families. Again, that's saying, hey, what type of font are we loading up, or what type of font can we use? And there's a lot of default options. If there isn't a default option, or if you don't think you can load it, give it a second parameter such as times, or something that you know all browsers will load, just in case if it can't load that original font. And then define what font family it's from, serif or sans serif. Generally, if you download a font, it will give you a serif version or a sans serif version, and you just want to define that there. So again, it's a quick tutorial, but we learn a little bit more about fonts and styling and all that good stuff. So thanks again for watching, guys. Please subscribe and like these videos, share them with your friends. Obviously, share it with your grandmother, because she's going to want to develop a website on how to knit sweaters for kittens, and we're going to help her do that. So guys, thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.